this video, we're going to have a look at how to use Python to create a noughts and crosses game. So I'm going to be using idle, and if you are using a different version of Python, then that's still going to be fine as long as you are using Python 3. So I'm using Python 3.7 here, which is not the latest version, but it's still okay. So I'll go to File and then choose New File. And this makes a window where I can type in my program. So you might remember that if we're using idle, then we have one window where I type in my program, and we have one window on the other side. I'll just move it over here, where my program output is going to appear. Now, since I'm writing a noughts and crosses game, the first thing I'm going to do in my program is to show a noughts and crosses board. And I'm not going to use any complicated graphics for that. I'm just going to use keys which are on the keyboard, and I'm going to use the print command. So I'll write print, and then I'll put a couple of spaces, and then I'm going to do a vertical line. Now I'm using the key which has a vertical line on it, which on my keyboard is just above the enter key. Then I'll put 3 spaces, then another vertical line, and then another 2 spaces, and then finish the print statement. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to add some horizontal lines. So I'll use the dash, and then I'll use the plus symbol to do where the horizontal and vertical lines meet. So I'm just making a noughts and crosses board here. I can use copy and paste to finish it off. And if I've done it right, then when I run my program, I've got to save it first. When I run my program, I should see an empty noughts and crosses board. So let's call this noughts and crosses. And there we go. There's the empty board. Okay, now the next step is that I want to keep track of different counters which are played on my board. So we're going to have an O and an X player, right? And if I just draw this to show you the design, here's my noughts and crosses board. And then one person is going to be O and one person is going to be X. Now I'm going to say that O is the computer player and X is the human. Now, when we're programming our computer player, it's going to be very useful to be able to refer to each square on the board with a number. So I'm going to say that this is square number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, this is number 4, 5, 6, and this is 7, 8, and 9. So in order to create a computer player, the first step is to create a variable for each of these squares. That variable will store whose counter is on the square. So I'll go up here, and first of all, I'll create a variable for square number 1. Now, I could give it any name I like, but I'm going to choose logical names. So I'll put S for square, and then I'll put 1. So that means square 1. And at the beginning, I'm just going to make the variable equal to the number of the square. So I'll put S1 equals 1 and S2 equals 2. And then I'm going to follow the same pattern for all of the other squares. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then put the numbers in here. Okay, now later on, these are going to change so that instead of showing a number, it's going to show which player has put their counter into the square. So what I want to do is I want to put the contents of those variables into the spaces on my board. So instead of this being a space, it should show whatever is in variable S1, which at the beginning will be 1 because it will show you that you can put a counter in that square. That's square number 1, but then later on it would be an O or an X if somebody put their counter in the square. So you might say, how do we show that variable in that space. And there are a few different ways to do it in Python, but I think probably the easiest way to understand is something called f strings. What we do is we write the letter F in front of the quotation marks on each of our strings like this. And everywhere we want to show a variable, we write the variable inside curly brackets. So I do open curly bracket, S1, close curly bracket. And then in the middle, top middle square, I'll put open curly bracket, S2, close curly bracket. And open bracket, S3, close curly bracket. And those variables match the numbers on my board. So S1 will show whatever's in square 1 here. S2 will show whatever's in square 2 here. S3 here will show whatever's in square 3 in this position. So I do the same thing for the other spaces too. S4, S5, S6, S7, S8, and S9. Now, sometimes it might look a little bit complicated. If you don't know Python very well, you might look at that and think, well, it looks a little bit complicated, okay? But there's a simple pattern. So the simple pattern is F, and then the quotation marks, and then we have each of these variable numbers from 1 to 9, and they're always in the curly brackets. If you don't see the correct result, okay, when I run the program, I should get, now I've actually not got the correct result there because I deleted some spaces by accident. So let me put those spaces back in. Just so that all of the board lines up. Let's try again. There we go. So there's my board with all of the numbers in the correct spaces. Now, if you aren't seeing your numbers in the correct spaces, actually, I'm just going to put you a little bit extra space here to make it look neater. If you're not seeing the numbers in the correct spaces, or if you're not seeing numbers, then it might be because you used the wrong type of brackets. So make sure they are the curly brackets. It's next to P on my keyboard. So Shift and the key next to P. Let's try again. Check it looks good. That's good, except the 4 is wonky, so I'll just move that 4 left a little bit and try again. There we go. I think that looks best. Okay, so now I've got my noughts and crosses board, and the next step is we want to be able to ask the user which square they want to put their piece in. So I can do that by using the input command in Python. So the input command, will allow us to enter a number or some text. So I'll say move equals input, and then inside the brackets I can write a question. So I'll say, what's your move? Question mark. Okay. Now, when I run the program, that input command is going to ask somebody to enter their move, and they're going to type the number of the square they want to move in. So for example, if I wanted to put my counter there, I would type number 4 and press enter. So the next step is when they type their move, we want to change that square into their counter. Now this is the human player, so that means that their counter is an X. So if they type number 1, then we want to put the X in square 1, and we do it like this. We say if move equals equals, that's 2 equal signs, 1 in quotation marks, then S1 equals X. Okay, so we're saying that if the move they entered was in square 1, then this variable, which is whatever is in square 1, equals X, which is their counter. If move equals 2, S2 equals X. If move equals 3, S3 equals X. So you can see there's a really simple pattern here. We're considering all of the possible squares they might move to, and then we are going to put the counter in that square. So again, copy and paste could be your friend here to save you a little bit of time. So This is going to be 5, 6, 7, oh, sorry, 6, 7, 8, and I need one more, 9. And then I need to set the numbers here, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay, so if I run the program now, I can enter a move. So let's say I wanted to put my counter in square 9. I could type 9 and press enter. Now the problem is I don't show the board again. So even though there is now a counter in square 9, I haven't displayed the board, so we don't get to see where the move has gone. So what I want to do is I want to show the board again. And that means that I want basically to repeat all of this part where I show the board more than once. Now, there's a really easy way to repeat things in Python. What we do is we write while true with a capital T, and then put a colon, and then everything that you want to repeat should go underneath it, and you select it, and then you move it to the right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select all of the things that I want to repeat, and then I'm going to press the tab key on my keyboard, and that will move everything to the right. So I just did it there, and you should have seen it move to the right. Okay, if you missed it, I'll do it again. So I select everything that I want to repeat, and it needs to be directly underneath the while true. Select everything you want to repeat, and then press the tab key, and it moves to the right. Now if I run my program, I can type a number for a square, 6, and it's put an X in that square. Okay, now I can type a number for another square, 9, and it's put an X in that square. So we've got a game of noughts and crosses now, but it only has one player. So the next task is we've got to create a computer player. And that's what we're going to do in the next video.